Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up, and make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video, and yeah, let's begin. Okay, so continuing on with our Beyond Omega Level series, for those of you guys who are not part of Patreon, I've actually started letting my patrons decide what videos we're going to do on Beyond Omega Level. So if you guys want to have your input, if you guys want to contribute to which ones we end up making, head over to Patreon, check it out. It's like $1 or something like that. I'll post a poll every week based on the various characters I'm going to do, and then say which one of these are you guys the most interested in, and then we just kind of go from there. But in this week's video, we're covering Proteus. Now, Proteus is a character that I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing more of in the upcoming X-Men comics, because he was revealed to be one of the 5, which is a group of mutants that use their powers to revive dead X-Men on Krakoa in Hickman's House and Powers of X. So I'd be willing to bet that Proteus is going to be a pretty big part of the X-Men stories going forward, and since he's not really one of the most well-known mutants, I figured we go ahead and cover him here. So Proteus originally appeared in Uncanny X-Men issue number 125, and he was created by Chris Claremont and John Byrne, although he had been referenced earlier than that. Proteus's origin is actually pretty dark, in that Moira McTaggart was basically assaulted by her husband, who had basically forced her to marry him, and as a result she ends up getting pregnant with their son Kevin, but she leaves her husband because of his abusive nature and never tells him that she's pregnant. Now following this, she takes Kevin to a mutant research center on Muir Island near Scotland, but after he starts exhibiting his mutant powers, she realizes that he's a danger to others because of the side effect of his powers being that he has an insatiable hunger for energy, right? So like a mini Galactus, basically. So Moira basically locks her son in a containment cell where he is surrounded by a constant supply of energy, and she tries to keep his existence a secret. She's able to do this essentially for a pretty good chunk of time until the X-Men and Magneto end up in a battle on Muir Island and damage the cell, which allows Kevin to escape. Now after this, he possesses the body of a boat captain named Angus McWhirter, who is basically a dick, right? This guy just didn't like Moira McTaggart or the X-Men, so like after he broke into like this old boathouse, he was trying to basically dig up dirt so he could kind of expose them and get them booted out, and then Proteus took over his body. Now eventually, and not really even eventually, like right off the bat, Proteus realizes that McWhirter's body is not an effective vessel for his power, and so he seeks out a more powerful host and thinks that he has one in Jean Grey, who was actually in possession of the Phoenix Force at the time and is simply able to resist Proteus's possession. However, he ends up taking over the body of one of the duplicates of Jamie Madrox, also known as a Multiple Man, but Kevin's eventually confronted by the X-Men. They end up in a fight, and Proteus pretty much wipes the floor with all of them, and he does it quite readily. Like he totally like decimates the entire X-Men team, but ultimately he's scared off when Moira fires a sniper rifle at him because he's vulnerable to metal. And so Proteus ends up running off and goes to confront his father, whom he possesses, before fighting with the X-Men yet again. And this time, when he's in his form of pure energy, he's punched by Colossus, which scatters his energy throughout the world because once again, Proteus is vulnerable to metal and Colossus has osmium metal skin. And so while it was thought that Proteus was dead following this battle, of course, we're in the realm of comics, and so his death was anything but permanent. And so Proteus ended up popping up a few times since that initial storyline. And prior to him showing up in Hickman's run, he was most recently seen in Astonishing X-Men when the Shadow King found a piece of his energy floating around in the astral plane and used it as a power source to do battle with Charles Xavier. Now eventually Proteus was reconstituted into a physical form and once again defeated the X-Men, who seemingly disperses energy across the world a second time. And we don't really know what happened to him that led to him being in Hickman's X-Men books. We're not really sure how he got there. All we simply know is that he's there, but we'll probably get an explanation as we get deeper into this run. But on to Proteus's powers, which is what you guys are here for, right? You guys want to see, you guys want to talk about like the powers of Proteus and what it is that he's capable of. He's able to consume the psionic energy of others, possess and inhabit their bodies, and even warp reality. He typically exists in the form of pure psychic energy, and when he possesses the bodies of others, he's able to access their memories and carry them with him whenever he leaves their bodies. Now when Proteus possesses a body, he drains them of their life energy, so they can only last for a very limited amount of time before he burns them out entirely and they're discarded, meaning Proteus has to constantly find new hosts. And according to Jean Grey, after she probed his mind, he becomes increasingly powerful with each new body that he possesses. Now after one of his resurrections, he was able to possess more than one body at a time, indicating that his psionic abilities had actually grown since his initial appearance, when he only demonstrated an ability to possess one body at a time. In addition to possessing others, he can also create force fields, blasts of psychokinetic energy, and teleport others into his mind. And so Proteus has also demonstrated some telepathic ability as well as resistance to the telepathic telepathic abilities of others. Now, because Proteus is made of pure energy, he has an insanely high level of durability. He was unfazed by a lightning attack from Storm and survived a combined blast of Cyclops' optic beams and Havoc's plasma blast. This is an insane amount of power that's basically coming out of there. Now, even taking into consideration his weakness to metal, even if Proteus is killed, he's able to reconstitute himself after being dispersed, making his death temporary and rendering him effectively immortal. Now, Proteus also has reality warping abilities, but they are more limited than some of the more powerful reality warpers in the Marvel Universe, like Franklin Richards and Jim Jaspers, because Proteus can only warp what he can see and focus on. If he loses concentration, whatever he's warped will revert back into its normal state. Now, even with that limitation in mind, we have seen Proteus use his powers multiple times to change one object into something else or to neutralize the powers of his opponent. In more than one instance, Proteus has used his reality warping abilities to nearly kill his opponents, such as turning the iron in Magneto's blood into lead, causing Iceman to melt, and draining the power from Rogue. So again, this is an insane amount of power here, right? I mean, it's not every day that you see stuff like this. This is the reason why I say when it comes to reality warpers, no matter what scale they're on in terms of like how far reaching their abilities are, for the most part, they're all pretty much at the top of my list, right? Now remember, when it comes to reality warping, there really is no limit to this. And that's the reason why Jonathan Hickman put Proteus on his list of Omega level mutants, is because if you can warp reality in a localized space, you can warp reality on a universal space. It's just a matter of how far you can push those powers and how much you can see and how much you can enhance your abilities. Because the reality is that anybody who has reality warping powers, Franklin Richards, Jim Jaspers, whatever the case is, they've all basically got cosmic awareness, right? The ability to understand what's going on a cosmic level. The question is, can they tap into it and can their mind handle it? Usually when it comes to cosmic awareness, it's kind of handled in a couple different ways. If you take somebody like Wendell Vaughn, who's given the quantum bands and suddenly gains cosmic awareness, it can be overwhelming. Of course, his mind was basically capable enough that he could handle it, but you give it to like any average Joe or under any normal circumstance, it can put him into a catatonic state. We saw that when the Phoenix basically gave Jason Wingard cosmic awareness for a brief moment in time, showed him everything in existence, and his mind shut down. He couldn't handle it, right? So how Marvel does it is contextual. It's based on the story and how it is that they want to boost the character, whether they want to do anything with him or whether they want to leave them alone or whatever the case is. But more often than not, with somebody like Proteus, to gain true cosmic awareness, he would have to take it in steps, right? Because his mind's already unstable. So he'd have to take it in steps, right? You have to become aware of everything in the solar system, and then maybe everything in like 20% of the galaxy, and then everything in 50%, working his way up to 100, and then everything beyond that, sort of taking it in phases and kind of expanding out bit by bit over time to the point where he can basically achieve cosmic awareness and know everything that's going on throughout the entirety of the universe. Once that happens, Proteus will be insanely powerful. He'll be a nigh omnipotent, unstoppable being within the confines of the universe. He'll still be weaker than like Eternity or like the Living Tribunal or somebody like that, but at the moment, he's just basically a guy who can manipulate reality in a localized space. So at the moment, we know that he's basically Omega level, right? Like we know that he's using his powers to resurrect X-Men after they die as part of the New World Order of Mutants that Charles Xavier's establishing on Krakoa. But I think that personally, it'll be pretty interesting to see what kind of role he's going to play in the future stories of the X-Men going forward. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. Again, if you want to be able to vote on what videos we're going to have, make sure you head over Patreon and make sure that you take part in that whole voting process, right? It's not super expensive. It's not like I'm not going to charge you like 20 bucks a month to vote on characters for Beyond Omega level. That's stupid, and I'd be stupid to expect you to pay that. It's like $1 or something like that. Also, for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, I do have a personal Instagram at @IamRobJefferson. We just crossed 10,000 followers yesterday, and I think we're at 10,600 now. We're growing really fast. So that's really awesome. So make sure you guys head over there because I'm actually giving away Rob Corps rings starting on November 4th, running to November 8th. One Rob Corps ring each day. There's a catch to it. There's actually a video on there that will explain how the Rob Corps rings are given away. Once November 8th ends, I'm going to take that video down so that I'm not having people who show up in December, you know, believing that they're going to get a Rob Corps ring. I don't want to lead people on like that. But yeah, it's cool. Like I think you guys will really enjoy it. But yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.